Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing? Good, good. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Zoom was having a little bit of an act up, but we figured it all out, and we really thank you for your patience. So anyone who unfortunately couldn't stay, we will be uploading this to YouTube. So I wanted to start off by thanking Michael Levine, who is, of course, our blonding expert for Canada. And I wanted to thank you guys all for taking the time with us today. And if you have any questions, please write them in the chat. And we will be answering your questions throughout the class. So I will throw it over to Michael.
Hey guys, this is Michael Levine. I am so sorry. We're still having weird technical difficulties on our end of it. But hopefully you guys can see me and hear me okay. I apologize massively for this. I don't know why everything I'm involved in technologically does not work, but we're going to try to give you guys some really, really good information today. First of all, my name is Michael Levine. I have been a Pulp Riot educator since day one. Since prior to Pulp Riot. I think if you turn it this, no, it's going the other way. Okay. What Liz, my wife, is shooting the camera for me, and she's actually seeing a mirror version of what we have in front of us. It's really strange right now. But anyway, I've been a hairdresser since like 1992, and I've been an educator since 1996. And I joined Pulp Riot right at its inception. And that's basically me. My wife and I, we own some salons in Vancouver and a couple of academies as well. So I'm an educator. Despite the bumbling that you're going to be experiencing from me right now, I'm actually a fairly seasoned educator. So I'm going to do my best to kind of get my act together. Thank you, Pulp Riot and Carson, for trusting me to take this class. And hopefully I'm about to make up for it with the information that I give you. I wanted to talk to you guys about systems because the first couple of years that I was a hairdresser, I kind of went at it really willy-nilly. And what I'm going to show you guys today are some systems that I've developed over the years to help me stay on schedule and to have predictable results. Systems are crucial to everything we do if we want to have success, because as a hairdresser, if a client, talks about, hey, I was thinking about getting some highlights, and you don't have the ability to predict how long it takes you to put in a head of foils, or at least the type of foils, a minimum version of what it is she's looking for, you can't upgrade or upsell your services. And that makes it a lot harder for you to earn a really great living. And we know as hairdressers, when we have the ability to upsell, it makes a massive difference to your income. In fact, Liz, who's behind the camera, who some of you guys may have met over the years, she was the queen of saying yes to everything. She never got stressed out about anything. If a client said, your hair's so shiny, Liz would say, oh, it's this product. Do you want me to use it on you? And then she would constantly upsell these services. And it was really inspiring to me to try to figure out ways to make everything that a client wants to happen, despite what they were booked for. We always want to upgrade. What's wrong?
It's moving.
It's like she's not even aiming this thing at me. So can you guys see me okay? Carson, are you there?
I'm here. Yeah, you're kind of on the side, but
which side? On this side or this side?
No, I'm getting fireplace galore, and you're
But if you tilt
if I tilt this way, I get the fireplace.
Other way.
Tilt
the other way.
This way.
Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect.
So
That's like perfect. That? Yeah, leave it.
Just aim it right at me.
Okay, just be vocal with me then and help me out, please.
Perfect. Don't move for the next 40 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, so anyways, systems are amazing. And once I started working with a company that taught me systems, it changed the way I worked. When you guys go to a restaurant, you don't want the chef to willy-nilly just make things randomly. You want it the same as you had it the last time. And it's the same thing. Those systems really allow us to, as I said, they predict everything, and predicting timing and predicting results is how we have success as a hairdresser. And that allows us to make more money and make our clients happy. And that's really what it's all about, is making people's hair dreams come true, us staying on schedule and having way less stress in our lives. So I want to talk to you guys about a system that I created years ago that I've been perfecting over the years. And I'm going to be showing you guys, I'm going to do it with these two girls. I'm going to put these two girls in a headlock, and I'm going to talk about this system. This came about during the Christina Aguilera chunky highlight era of what, 1999? That era, I used to do a lot of that kind of work. I was a young hairdresser when chunky highlights were first happening in the mid 90s. And we spent a lot of time experimenting because it was totally new. We were figuring out ways to do stuff. And this kind of came from that Christina Aguilera red and white situation. I was doing it on a lot of my clients and just kind of figuring it out because there really wasn't a system for it. And we started playing with back-to-back slices. Now, we look at today and back-to-back slices, we use them all the time. We use them in money pieces. Right now, chunky highlights are really, really big. For me, I think that old school kind of 90s chunky highlight where it's like stripe, 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 I think it's a bit vulgar. Although I saw one online the other day that was like deliberately chunky, like perfectly symmetrical, and it looked pretty cool. But overall, I think it can be a little vulgar, a little bit dated, a little bit pedestrian. And this system that I created way back then to make things more interesting kind of takes us out of that and makes it a little less predictable looking. And that's what this is all about. So I wanted to show you guys this system, put her down right now. And it's basically like barcodes. And the pattern that I came up with is 1, 2 back to back, 1 single, and then 3 back to back. Can you see this okay? And then 1 single, 2 back to back, a single, and then 3 back to back. And then you just repeat. So it's 1, 2, 1, 3, or 1, 3, 1, 2, whatever you want. Wherever you want the first big accent piece is what you want to hit first. But we always start with a single because we don't hit that chunk right at the front. I think with shorter geometric shapes, and really ideally, as I said, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. As I said, this system was born during when the accent of a highlight was on the top, right? We were always light on, in the 90s, we were light on the top and darker on the bottom and underneath. And now it's the reverse of that. So this system doesn't necessarily work so well on longer hair, but it works really beautifully on geometrics. That's the beauty of it. So I'm going to show it to you on geometrics. So basically, wherever you want your strongest accent is going to be your 3 back-to-back slices. And then as we move to the crown, we can mix it up with just a few weaves to kind of diffuse it. But we really, you'll see here, we really don't go past the crown, just maybe an inch or so past the crown. Think about the way the hair falls. So this would be a perfectly symmetrical version of this shape. And I'm going to show you an asymmetric version. So this one, we basically just started off on an angle. I don't pre-section these things. I just kind of go by the hairline. But we started off on an angle on a diagonal, and I tend to do this on the parted side. So if her part is here, I might come at it on the diagonal, and then I'm hitting my 1, 2, 1, 3. These are a little close together, but 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, and then I'm doing singles. Now you'll see that I've tapered these. I'm going to show you the version of this one that I did because this was on kind of a firefly haircut. You youngins don't know what that means, but I'm going to show you some old school classic geometric shaped haircuts, but it's kind of V-shaped at the back. So I'm following the idea of a V-shape. But that's the idea here. But you'll notice that I start on an angle where the hair is asymmetric on the side, but as we move to the back, I'm pivoting, and because the back falls with symmetry. So what ends up happening in this version of the style is we actually get a higher concentration. We have a really shallow amount of hair being colored, but we get a high concentration of color on one side. And then on this side, we get tons of texture where the hair falls. What's really kind of cool about this is you can actually part it on the opposite side. My wife's smiling at me. Why? What's wrong? You can part it on the opposite side and get super weird results that are totally different. So what I wanted to do is just show you how this system works. And I'm going to put in some foil. So I'm just going to put this girl away. I'm wearing shorts.
And slippers.
And slippers. Okay, so guys, I'm gonna be working with the cream bleach on this one. Can y'all see that? So I'm not gonna weigh it, but I'm gonna be working on some cream bleach. There she is. So I don't know if you can see this. Have you guys tried the cream bleach yet?
We've got a lot of yeses. It's the bomb.
It is? You love it? Good. I
Love
like
it.
it as well. Now, I'm just gonna eyeball this because I'm not weighing it, but I am a low and slow kind of guy. So I rarely start anything with more than 10 volume. I might hit it with 20 volume if I'm trying to do a quick in and out on this, but I tend to do 6 volume or 10 volume. And I personally tend to mix to consistency because I like my bleach really thick, and it's probably because I'm really sloppy, and the thicker it is, the less likely it's going to slip. So I like it, people say Greek yogurt. I like it like polyfill. I like it to just hit it and stick. So I'm not going to do a full head of this. I'm just going to put in a few, but then I'm going to show you some results. Now this might be a little bit tough for Liz to shoot. Liz, I just realized my kit is up here. Hold tight. And he's back. Anybody have any questions so far? Other than how did you give this guy a platform?
It's pretty cool. It looks like we have one person following along with a mannequin head there.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan.
Man, VIP.
That is so cool. What a keener. Now, this girl, she has some bangs already, and this look works really cool with bangs, as I'm going to show you on a couple of the mannequins that I've pre-done. So I'm not sure, does this angle look reasonable, guys?
Someone
right?
that's a hairdresser. Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, good. I'm just going to move this. Carson, I think the last time we shot something with you, it was a disaster too.
Sorry.
And I blame me. Of course, I'm blaming me.
In the salon.
Yes, it was. Oh, I don't know what it is.
Or maybe-
Okay, so guys, I'm going to do this symmetrically. We're going to come in straight across. I always like to leave a little kind of a gap, a little halo along the fringe. One of the things that I kind of like to do, guys, is I like to leave a darker outline along the perimeter of this type of work because it makes my highlights stand out more. Every bit as important as the highlight is the stuff you don't highlight, right? The negative space. I always say this to my students: if you highlight everything, you highlight nothing, right? So what I like to do is very often in this type of work, leave either the natural or a darker color along the hairline. So I'm going to take, this is going to be my single slice. Can you see okay, Liz? Or are you just guessing? And I'm going to stick it in. And I always put my foils in symmetrically. Do you want to just maybe come in tight, like here? Like, would it make sense to be? No, I know it's weird.
Okay.
I feel like
You're perfect. That's perfect, actually.
Beautiful.
Leave it like that.
Thank you.
Do not move. Okay, so we're going to put in this single slice. And one of the other things, guys, sometimes I see with you young, and I don't know if there's any kind of rookies in here, but sometimes what I'll see is they'll change the densities of their foils based on what they're trying to do. Your foil should always be the exact same density. And if you want it to be a little thicker, just stack them. Okay, so that's my single. So now this is going to be my predictable space. And the more contrast that we're looking for, the further apart you place these things. I find you get plenty of contrast with just a standard kind of distancing in your placement. So you don't have to really exaggerate it. So obviously mannequin hair is a little weirder. So we're just going to kind of go with it. So this is going to be my double. This is going to be my back-to-back. Try to always, when you're putting your foils, guys, try to have equal distance on either side of it. I use my previous foil as a guide for my next foil. I always do that. I never fold edges over. I just keep it really, really simple. You'll notice that I don't use my tail comb to put these things in. I don't use a board, any of that kind of stuff. I just kind of keep it really, really simple. And if I kind of go in straight, then I know where my next foil should line up. I'm just going to tilt her down a little. I really appreciate you guys joining me on this Monday, and I really appreciate you hovering in limbo while we figured out how to somewhat shoot this thing. Anybody here doing geometric haircuts? Nobody?
All the time. Yeah, someone says all the time.
I love shorter hair. I love geometrics. And when Carson asked me to do one of these, I thought, you know, the last thing you guys need is another shag with curtain bangs and a money piece. You know, there are so many people doing that kind of work so much better than me. And yes, of course I do it in the salon all the time. But when I get an opportunity to hit some geometric work, you know, like I said, I'm old school. I was trained in the era of the graduated bob. You know, I was trained in the era of that kind of mid-90s backcombed crown. It was a fun era. This is a single now, guys. It was a fun era to work in. What I loved so much about it was it taught me technical haircutting. And, you know, just that, like a modern version of that old Sassoon work. And when I get that in the salon, it's my favorite thing in the world. You know, and if you actually come and sit in the salon and watch me work, you'll see half the work I do is short. And, you know, when I do Pulp Riot shows, I tend to do short work as well, because it is sort of my area, and also because I'm lazy and I don't like to blow dry. So that's a single. And that was sarcasm. I'm not lazy, but I'm pretty lazy. So that was my single. So now this is a double. This is a 2. 1, 3, 1, 2. No, wait, is this a 3? This is a 3. I always have to go back and count. If I have somebody assisting me, then I get them to keep track of what I'm doing. So this is going to be 3 back-to-backs. So I'm going to put these 3 in, and then I'm not going to bore you anymore with watching me put in foil, because y'all know how to put in a foil. If there's any rookies in here, I do want to give you a little helpful hint when it comes to folding your foils. This is what I always show the students at our academy. You know, very often when we fold a foil, first of all, you know, we want to make sure you really saturate the ends. There's nothing worse than removing a foil and realizing you didn't saturate. And then it's like, oh my God. And then you've got this kind of dark spot. So really saturated. One of the tricks to saturating, guys, do a little side to side, okay? Just a wee side to side, and then just go back in and stretch it back down. But I use a lot of pressure. I like a really firm brush that's really hard, so I can really push in. But anyways, here's what I see a lot of people when they fold foils. They go, why do my foils bleed? First of all, they're not getting it in close enough, and very often they just fold it up and pray. If your foil is loose like this, guys, and it's slipped away, this is going to be a bleed. So what you've got to do is, I'm just going to scooch in here. You got to lift it back into position. And whether you do it this way or you do the Vulcan kind of whatever, you got to get it back into position, hold it tight, and then stretch it down. You cannot just fold and pray. Okay? Really important. Second thing, don't paint to the top of the foil. Okay? The hair is like a straw. It's going to suck it up. If you get your foil to the top and you paint 1/8 of an inch from the top, you're good. It's going to be to the roots. I've never had a client tell me that my foils didn't go to the roots, and I almost never bleed, but this one's probably going to bleed. And the reason is I don't paint too high. I get my foil in nice and high. I don't paint too high. I leave like that much, and I just let the hair suck it up. It will suck up, promise. Now, when they fold, this is another key thing. I see people who fold like this. They fold from the ends. and they get a big disaster going on, or when they fold, they pull away from the scalp as they're folding up. So I teach something called the bend and snap. I made that up. So when you've got it, you've painted, go to the halfway point and snap it out. Okay, and that's going to put a little wee crease in it and just flip it over. Snap it out, flip it, spank it, and you're done. Okay, don't mess with it. That's my system. It has never failed me in 28 years of doing hair. So this is a 3. So I'm going to do 3 back to back. And guess what happens when you get 3 back to back foils, guys? You got a big chunk, a really big one. Now with this look, you can do whatever you want with it. You can create whatever patterns you want with it. For a long time, when I was doing my highlights with this, I would do a 1, 2, or I do a 1, 3, 1, 2, and then ones everywhere else. And that's the language we actually speak in our academies in Vancouver, is when I'm laying out to my students the pattern that I want to use on a client, that's what I do. I just give them the numbers. And it's a really nice way of communicating where you want the density. And that way, you know, it's really, once you teach a system like this, it's then about, you can just give them numbers. It's sort of like with numbers of hair color and tones and all that. When you speak a language, it makes communicating a lot easier. Whoops. Oh, that's a, look at that. There's a 2 in there. Get out of it. Any questions so far?
No questions. Feel free to ask them in the chat and I'll be happy to read them back to Michael. We had Miles that said, I love using shapes in my foils, triangle sections, square sections, etc. It makes the color so beautiful and funky.
Yeah, and you know what's so cool about that is it's not, even though it's predictable for you and your pattern was there, when somebody looks at it, they can't figure out how it's happening. And that's what's so cool about this too. When they look at it, they go, well, yeah, it's chunky highlights, but I don't know what, I just know that I'm seeing something different than standard chunk, 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 you know, and they don't know why. But meanwhile, you're just following a very specific pattern. And it's the same, yeah, all of that kind of work, guys, when we work with patterns and systems, it's so great. And what's so cool is you can create your own. You know, this idea of back-to-back slices, I didn't invent, but I've absolutely come up with my own little kind of system of it over the years. So I think, what was this, a 3? That's a 3. So if we look at this, so I've got 3 back-to-back, just to reiterate for those in the back. We've got a space, then we've got a single. I'm not worried if any of these slip and bleed. Then we've got another space, negative space, and then we've got a double and a negative space, and then that's our first one. Now, the idea of this is when we're working with short geometrics is less is more. We can impact a lot, like geometrics tend to be more or less one length, right? Which means we can cover a lot of surface area just by doing the mohawk. So if this is between 15 and 18 foils, realistically at 30 seconds a foil, you have this thing installed in 10 minutes and it allows you so much opportunity for upselling. So here's how I would approach this if I didn't have it planned, maybe I was booked, but I also knew I had the ability to put in a few foils, put in 10 minutes worth of foils. I would probably cut this first. I would cut it to get the skilled labor out of the way, because any of you guys who do geometric work, you know that you're going to spend half an hour cutting it after it's dry anyways, right? No matter how much time you spend cutting it wet, you're going to still spend half an hour cutting it dry, hopefully, unless you're amazing. I'm not. I always have to redo things. So I would blast in the general shape of your haircut, get it 99% or 90% there, and then whip in just a mohawk of foils. And I'm going to show you something really cool that you can do with this is with other color surfaces as well with this idea. Just whip in the foils. If you're working with a lightener, you know, maybe you're pressed for time. So maybe you can, you know, up your developer a little bit, or maybe you're doing it with color. Maybe you're doing it with high lift. I did one of these with high lift as well. And it allows you to have gotten the skilled labor out of the way. Then you can have an assistant rinse. Maybe you apply another color on somebody else. Or maybe you can knock the whole thing out in an hour because it only took you 10 minutes to put these in. Maybe it only took you 15 minutes to process it. You figure it out, but it's a really, really quick one. And then you're obviously going to refine it afterwards. I always try to get my cutting in first when I'm upselling work, because you can pass off blow dries to other people in the salon. Hopefully, if you're working with other people, I think working with other people is really helpful when you're behind, and it allows you to upgrade and upsell. But yeah, basically that's the idea. So I'm going to show you a couple of curls that I did. I'm going to start with, this one. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put her on the stand. So now you're going to look at this and go, well, that's pretty unremarkable. And you're right. Move this out. But I wanted to show you how this idea, I don't know if you can pick up on this, if you can see any of the subtlety in the tones. Can you see it, Liz, or not so much? Okay, so this is, a pretty standard classic graduated bob. Hopefully it is more posh spice than John and Kate +8. And hopefully a little less Karen, poor Karens. But anyways, what I wanted to show you guys with this one is this is kind of what I call tone on tone or level on level, where I actually did this with high lift. And I work with a lot of high lift. I'm a high lift guy. And I will use high lift on non-virgin hair as well, because I can usually get one level of lift. So this was done with the same technique with high lift. And I'm not sure you guys can pick up on it, but we've got almost just a level lighter, maybe a half a level lighter. Now, my formula here was 11-1-1 with 20 volume mixed 1-2. I know with high lift, we're using 30 or 40, but for me, when I only want one level of lift, I hit it with 20 volume. Sometimes I'll even do it with 10 volume. And what's really cool about that, when you're hitting it with the lower volume, you expose less underlying pigment. I'm not a scientist, it's just what I've experienced. I don't know if that's like fact, but I find I get less warmth when I use a lower volume developer. So I use high lift to my advantage that way to get that one level of lift or just a little bit of boost. And with her, we can see that it creates a much more blended visual, and that we've got a big one, we've got a little one. By the way, I did a low light with some demi in here as well. I believe my demi was 5-8, I believe. I love the -8s, guys. Those browns are amazing. And it's almost kind of like a little caramel on top of milk chocolate. I like to use food analogies when I'm working. Everybody likes chocolate and caramel. If you don't like caramel, something wrong with you. But yeah, so we'll see we've got the chunks, but they're not vulgar and big and awful like they would have been in that 90s version of it. So I don't know if, I'm hoping you guys can pick up on this, and I'll show you as well through the back. We didn't take anything below here. One of the key things, one of the cardinal sins with a graduated bob is foiling too low, because if any of that comes into your graduation, can you see this graduation list? Mm-hmm. Any of those foils come into your graduation, you get the dreaded leopard spots, right? So my laziness is a massive advantage here for putting in like 15 foils. Now, what else would I do? Maybe, would I do a couple of diagonal slices here? Sure. Why not? It's your thing. It's up to you, but you don't need to. I think it works beautifully, and you get massive coverage. And whatever it is you want to do, just celebrate it to the client and just say, you know what, we're going to leave it a little darker underneath to give it the canvas for these highlights, right? We can't have highlights if we have highlights everywhere. Because as I said earlier, if you highlight everything, you highlight nothing. So that is this look, and I'm kind of feeling it. I'm a bob guy. That is my cut. I was cutting this on the garage or out on the driveway yesterday. And now it's raining here for the first time in like 100 days or something. So the humidity is already popping this curl up, but I feel like that looks pretty hot. Okay.
Everyone is loving it, by the way. The chat is just on fire.
Whoa. You guys are all on fire. Speaking of fire, this is a firefly. Now, this came out of an era when haircuts had names. And our friends at Sassoon's have names for everything. And this is a firefly, which is basically a bowl cut. It can be one of the ugliest haircuts in the history of the universe, but learning how to do horizontal into diagonal graduation is super valuable. First of all, let's just look at this haircut and talk about what makes this haircut. And by the way, for any of you guys who are total purists, yes, I know it's not a perfect firefly. I kind of did my own little version of it, but the idea is a one length hair into graduation. So we've got a little bit of graduation here, and now you can see our one length. As we cut this, we're working it in almost to a V at the back, which was how I achieved this girl here, because I wanted that V-shaped color to kind of match up with my haircut. And that's really helpful if you cut first, guys. Very helpful if you cut first. Nothing worse than at the end of something going, oh, I wish I had left it a little longer there. I wish I had done it differently. And for me, when I cut first, it gives me my shape. So we've got that diagonal graduation that kind of crisscrosses and diminishes, giving us just a wee little point, which I've softened to make it a little bit more modern. Charlize rocked this not that long ago, and it looked pretty good. So I wanted to show you this one with a little bit more contrast as the last one. So we went really subtle with the last one. Here we've got a little more contrast. Now, in this situation, it's hard to get mannequin hair really, really light. So I got her up to I probably got her up to about an 8.5, maybe close to a 9, but she was a little yellow. So I toned her with 911 Liquid Demi. Left it on for quite a while, and it knocked out, I don't know, does she look yellow? Because to me, she does not look yellow. She's a beautiful blonde. And what's cool is when we do this pattern, you can see here's that really dark random piece, but because that hair is kind of pushing forward, it's very blended, but we still get texture. If we move it over more and really work that part, you can really see the texture. So depending on how you want to wear it is going to expose the texture. But the one thing is, and this might be a deal breaker for you, so you have to sell it to the client. You can't just surprise them with a big chunk, because there's always going to be a big chunk back here. So if you're not feeling the big chunk back here where you're ending up with a 2 or a 3, hit it with singles. Maybe you just do the 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, and then break it up into singles. And that way she's not going to end up with that bold piece. But for me, that bold piece is cooler than hell. I love that bold piece. And it's one of the signature kind of results of this shape. This to me, I freaking love a firefly. And guys, I got to tell you, it's hard to make these look good on a mannequin, but I think she is feeling it. What do you guys think?
Everyone loves it. You're insane at cutting. 911 is my new hero. Been loving it. Looks amazing. Everyone loves it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I love this one too. I could just like pet her for the duration of this class. So would anybody stay tuned? Okay, and then I'm gonna pull out my final girl, the final girl. I have to apologize, she's not cute. And it's not.
I think everyone's loving your cuts. Your cuts are inspirational. It's all about the cuts in the chat.
Okay, well, listen, y'all, let's talk about the cuts real quick. They're a bunch of bowl cuts. This is basically a one length bob where once it's done, and you know, there's a hairdresser named Damian Carney, and I went to a class with him, and I was a bob guy, as I told you. And all I did was cut these bobs, and I could cut it. I can grad bob till the cows come home. But then he was taking these standard grad bobs and then just opening them up to the cheekbones. And I was like, oh my God, I never knew how to do it. But just by him fearlessly just pulling that hair down and carving it out and showing that cheekbone, it is so, so powerful to me. So it's become a big part of what I do. And sometimes, you know, back in the day, I would do these asymmetrically. I would carve out just one cheekbone and then leave the other one. It was a different era. You wouldn't really do that today. But I love the cheekbones. And I'll tell you something that's really important. And this is totally as an aside. I'm old. My clients are old, right? Like when I was young and cool, I had young and cool clients. Now I'm old and not cool. So my clients are old. They're still cool, but they've aged with me. And as we age, you young people, your future is you will end up with crevasses, and you will end up with texture on your face. You'll end up with some experience on your face. And one of the things that we can do to minimize the appearance of experience on your face,
Oh.
What?
Aiden says you're still cool.
I'm always, whenever I say that line, I'm always fishing for somebody to tell me
Someone
I'm
said
cool.
Botox.
Botox. Now, if you don't have the Botox, which fine, Botox, but one of the things that we can do is allow light to the face. And it's a really key thing. If
Miles says-
she's, 90 years old and we're giving her a bob, when the light hits her from anywhere other than square on, she's getting a shadow. You can even see it compared to here. Well, you can't, so don't worry about it. But it creates shadow on the face, and that's going to make the lines look deeper. So when we allow light to the face, we allow more even light. And it makes a big difference, guys. I do believe as your clients mature, take the hair off the face.
I love that. Someone wrote bang talks.
What's that?
Someone wrote bang talks instead of Botox.
Oh,
Just
I
give them
like
some
that.
bangs.
I like that a lot. That's really good. So let me talk about this color. So this one, I went a little bit more high contrast in my tones. I was inspired by my Christina, but then when I flat ironed it, things kind of bled. She was a little lighter at the outset, but now we end up with kind of a peach on top of a kind of copper red. So let me just pick this up and I'll show you what's going on here. Isn't that cool? So with this is where I started this a little further back with my first single.
Oh my
And this
God, that's
is what I
good.
talked about with giving us that canvas for our color. So this one, I think I used even less foils. I probably did about 10 foils in here. But if we look at it, it looks like I've worked my ass off on this girl, where really I only did 10 foils and then everything else I hit with a liquid demi. I think I used stroke 6 or -66 and then 6-6. So basically some 666. Because why not? And so the first thing I did was I mapped it out with my highlights. And then I thought at first I was just going to shoot for high contrast with her. But then I thought, you know what, let's use this time while the highlights are processing to color everything else. Oh my God, I have to tell you this. I actually shot a video of this the other day. I'm going to backtrack and then I'm going to get back to her. But this was cool. When I was doing this one, talk about being efficient with your work. I put the highlights in. Yeah, so I did my like 15 or 17 foils. And then because it only went to here, I sectioned out the entire back and cut the graduation while the foils were in. So I did the hardest part. I did all of this, the hard part of the haircut, while the foils were in, so that when I rinse, all I had to do was join this in. Now, as I said, I'm lazy. I'm always trying to figure out a way to be efficient. I hate letting a client sit for half an hour with nothing going on. So it's the same thing with this. I can't let somebody sit. I don't take breaks. I don't eat. I don't remove my mask at work. I don't do any of that stuff. I never go into the staff room. I call it the minimum wage room. Nothing good happens in the staff room. So I'd rather be out on the salon floor working on my clients. So if I have hair between the foils, I'm going to go put something on it. I will. I just put something on it, even if it's just some gloss. That's what I do. Now, if you guys are all into taking breaks, that's fine. That's your thing. For me, I'm like, if I sit down, if you take the train off its tracks, it's not getting started again. I take a long time to get started. And once I go, I'm all momentum. So I'm fueled by caffeine and rage. So that's how I roll. But anyway, so back to this. I hit my pattern. I did it absolutely symmetrical. As I said, I started way back on this one so that I would have this foundation, this really strong red foundation. And I probably, as I said, only have maybe 10 foils in here. Massive impact. What we can do just by styling it, just by putting a bit of asymmetry in the style, we get this nice little cool triangle of red. What we could also do is just pick this up at the blonde, where the blonde starts, elevate it, and just cut it a little shorter so that the line sits above. And that could be really cool as like a hard line sitting right above this foundational red. So you have so many options available to you with this as a creative color, with it as a general color. Like in this situation, if this is a client who you're just doing an average, like standard root touch on, or maybe you're doing just a demi where you're trying to gloss up her hair, this is such an amazing opportunity for you to introduce her to some really subtle highlights, but she's not just getting that generic monochromatic result. Does that make sense, guys? You can actually just upgrade her. And when I do something like this and she's not asking for it, maybe I do it for free. Like maybe I just do it at the cost of the actual color that she had booked for maybe a demi. And I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to give you some really subtle highlights. It'll make a big difference. Really subtle. Let me do it. Because you got the time to do it. And then she's going to dig it. And then she's going to come back for more. She's going to tell her friends. And she's not walking out with monochromatic hair, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you can give it some dimension, and people can also kind of look at it and go, gee, I don't know what's going on there, but it looks cool. I'm into that. So I'm going to just show you this one from the back as well. So she's a little chunkier through that back as well, as we talked about, but then she needs a little fixing. But again, all of this is red. Now, this fell victim to a little bit of the flat iron fade. This was the 666. But she did fade out a little bit with the flat iron. So, and I was trying to rush mannequin hair. So keep your flat irons low when you're flat ironing after, particularly after your demis, and then they're going to last a little longer. But yeah, I dig this one. This was a fun one. Any questions or comments so far? No?
No questions.
Good. Are people still there?
Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Good. Awesome. So basically that's where I wanted to take this. I wanted to introduce you guys to a new idea that it's not new to me, but maybe it's new to you. I hope it's new to you. And the idea really was for you to kind of take a new system or take a system that's new to you and start thinking in terms of creating your own kind of patterns, making it yours. There aren't really any rules with this kind of thing other than you establish the rules and then you play within those rules and kind of push things and test things. One of the things that I always try to do when I'm working with my clients is I take a lot of mitigated risks. So I do things that that might be a little stretch. I don't even tell them sometimes, but I do little things to test how things are going to look, knowing that the worst case scenario is still going to look good. But it's how we make discoveries. And I do make discoveries on my clients. I do recommend it. Make little experiments. Don't do weird random things willy-nilly and F up their hair. That's a totally different story. But I do little tiny things to make it exciting for me and to have a learning experience. And it's one of those things, you know, very often people say to me, oh, what classes should I take? And, you know, the best class you can take is you being totally engaged and immersed in the client that's in your chair and paying attention to what happens to the hair when you cut it. What happened to the hair when you put in that foil pattern? I am still constantly striving to figure out how to make the ultimate money piece because I refuse to backcomb. I hate backcombing. So I'm trying to figure out how to make a foliage money piece. And it is literally it is all consuming for me. After 28 years of doing hair, I'm still trying to figure things out. And it's a really important thing. Like I always tell my students this as well. Never be satisfied with your work. Never be at a point that you're like, yeah, I'm good at this. Because as soon as you are, you're going to stop growing and you're going to stop looking at your work objectively. Be your worst critic, not in front of the clients. You know, if a client says, oh my God, I love it. You go, yeah, obviously I'm amazing. But in your head, you should be like gutted. You should be like, that's the worst thing I've ever done. Next time I'm going to make it better. That is literally how I live. Like I'm consumed by inadequacy, thoughts of inadequacy. And that makes me try to work a little bit harder within the parameters that I'm willing to work, because I've been at this for a while now. So I'm a little bit not quite as dedicated to spending the time into the salon, but that's really it. So it's about creating systems, developing mastery of your systems, creating foolproof results, and then celebrating it with your client, and then hopefully making a little bit of extra money, and then doing it with Paul Bryant. Because why not? Paul Bryant's pretty kick-ass. That's it. That's what I got.
Someone said when you figure out that money piece, please share. So we'll definitely, when you figure it out, we'll do a class on the money piece, I think. That's the next one. Everyone's saying thank you so much, that it was really worth the wait. So thank you so much, Michael. I know we'll be sharing the video on our YouTube for anyone that didn't get to watch or wants to see it again. And thank you all for attending this evening. We really appreciate the engagement.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
guys.
Thank you so much, Michael, and for the to Liz, the amazing camera woman.
So sorry. Oh my God.
So embarrassing.
You did well. You did well. Thanks,
Oh.
everyone.
You're lovely.
Bye.
Bye.